Mom, everything's locked up. On the morning of the day we were heading back to my hometown, my 5-year-old daughter looked up at me confidently and beamed. I even locked the basement. Being heavily pregnant and finding it hard to move around, I trusted her and we set off to my parents' house. I'm really saved by this reliable little girl. Above all, I was delighted to see her growing up. However, her diligence in locking up would lead to a shocking situation and eventually expose my husband's affair. I never imagined that. Had I chosen the wrong person to marry? Men are all like that, my friends would say in unison, but perhaps I had some expectations for Robert, who was a husband and a father. I am Susan, 32 years old. My married life with Robert, who is 3 years older than me, began in his one-bedroom place where he lived alone. Hey, I have something to tell you. It looks like I'm pregnant. Really? That's great. We had been talking about enjoying life, just the two of us, for a while after getting married, so I was worried about how he would react. However, he was genuinely happy about my pregnancy. Then, this place is too small, huh? Maybe we should think about buying our own home. I felt relieved hearing my husband's positive attitude about our future. We quickly found a used property that was perfect for us. A house with a basement that even had a toilet and a kitchen, ideal for a home theater room. The location was great, and many young families lived in the neighborhood, so it felt like the only choice for us. Soon after moving in, we became friends with a couple of similar age living next door and occasionally invited them over for tea. This seems like a great place to enjoy raising kids. I'm glad we found such a nice spot, Susan. I'm counting on you for child-rearing and housework. These words confirmed that my husband saw these responsibilities as the woman's role and was not very domestically inclined. This became even clearer after our daughter, Mary, was born. Hey, Susan! Mary is crying! Can you soothe her for now? I'm tied up at the moment. That's not my job, you know. No matter how much Mary fussed, he would call me over instead of comforting her himself. Yet, Robert, who worked in product planning and sales at a children's goods company, seemed to want to maintain a good image and played the role of a good father and husband in front of colleagues and friends. He was so happy when I got pregnant, but now he's like a different person. Mary started to experience night terrors when she was about 6 months old, and nothing I did could soothe my inconsolable child. I was at my wit's end. Enough. She's so loud, do something. She's just a baby, what can you expect? My response only earned a huge, exasperated sigh from my husband, who then silently grabbed a blanket and left the room. After getting Mary back to sleep, I peeked into the living room to find him snoring away on the couch. Why do I have to be the only one going through this? I was hardly getting any sleep, and on top of that, Mary's night terrors were only getting worse. I tried everything I could find online, but nothing worked. Give me a break. I work all day outside. Sleeping on the couch doesn't help me rest. What do you want me to do then? Take the kid for a walk or something. I refused, knowing that the cold night air could make Mary sick. That's when he abruptly got up and declared, "From now on, I'm sleeping in the basement." Since that day, Robert started to spend all his time in the basement, leaving me to handle everything concerning Mary. Even after her night terrors subsided, he never returned to our bedroom. Robert would head straight for the basement when he got home, resulting in almost no conversation between us, making it feel like we were living separately under the same roof. We were living in doubt when Mary was over 2 years old. She became listless one evening and developed a slight fever. But since her doctor was already closed, all I could do was watch her condition. I'm worried about Mary, she's not feeling well. Can you come home early today? If it gets worse, we might need to go to urgent care. I texted my husband but never got a reply. As her fever climbed, I became more anxious and called Robert multiple times, but he never answered. I can't wait any longer. I need to get her to the hospital now. I called a taxi and ended up taking Mary to the hospital alone. Even after waiting, I heard nothing from my husband. When we got back home, he was just arriving. He was trying to unlock the front door, reeking of alcohol. Hey, Susan. What are you doing out so late? It's not about what I'm doing. Didn't you see my calls and texts? Realizing my voice was getting louder and not wanting to disturb the neighbors, I pushed my husband inside the house. Why didn't you contact me? Mary had a high fever and it was serious. I had a business meeting, it was busy.
I get that, but I at least wanted a reply. I was anxious all by myself.
Ugh, parenting is your job, right? Stop relying on me. Without showing any concern for our daughter Mary, who was asleep in my arms, Robert just dropped that remark and went down to the basement as usual. Watching his back, an indescribable sense of loneliness and emptiness hit me. I thought he would at least worry. I believed that as Mary grew, he would change. I had always thought that, despite leaving all the parenting to me, he would eventually take on his role as a father. However, Robert only took care of Mary in public. At home, when Mary asked her father to play, he would claim to be busy and retreat to his basement, which became the norm. Years passed, and as Mary was about to turn 4, she began asking more frequently. When will I get to be a big sister? I want a little sister. Seeing her friends in the neighborhood with new siblings made her conscious of it. Having siblings is beneficial for social skills, so it would be good for Mary. With that thought, I decided to discuss it with Robert. Should we start thinking about a second child? I don't mind making a child, but can you handle everything on your own? Don't ask me for help, okay?
There's no need to say it like that.
Anyway, I'm busy, so I won't help with child rearing. As expected, Robert was clear in his refusal. Here we go again, same old story. He had never been helpful, and with Mary becoming more independent, I had no intention of relying on Robert. Fine. I'll take care of them. With strong resolve, I responded, and Robert agreed to cooperate in conceiving. A few months later, I was pregnant. Mary was looking forward to becoming a big sister, talking to my belly every day. As for Robert, he merely responded with "I see" when told about the baby and showed no interest in the pregnancy or in Mary. He seemed too comfortable living in the basement, staying there whenever he was home. I sometimes entered the basement for cleaning, only to find more items accumulating each time. A sofa bed, a table. Thinking back, I remembered delivery people coming on Robert's days off. The basement had its own outside entrance, which he likely used to bring in the large furniture. Additionally, the stock of ready meals, instant noodles, and snacks grew, making the basement resemble Robert's old bachelor pad. No wonder he finds it comfortable. But it feels so lonely. Moreover, recently, just as our daughter accidentally entered the basement alone and got scared, my husband made sure the door from inside the house to the basement wouldn't open. Because of that, when my husband came home, he would go directly to the basement from outside without seeing us. He often had his meals out, and I felt lonely even though we lived in the same house. However, as my belly got bigger and I wasn't feeling well, I mostly lay down, and surprisingly, my husband took our daughter to the park. Today, I'm gonna take Mary to the park, so you can just relax.
What? Really? That would be a relief. The park? Yay!
Since this was a rare occurrence, Mary was overjoyed and left the house bouncing with excitement. However, when Mary returned an hour later, I was shocked to see her face. A band-aid was put on her cheek.
What happened here?
Yeah, she just fell, but she should be fine. The nice Jessica, who always visits us, did the pain, go-away thing for her. Jessica is a lady around our age who became good friends with us soon after moving here, and we have a close relationship with her and her husband's family. She doesn't have children yet and is quite the career woman. Jessica loves children and has always been kind to Mary. That's good then. But does it hurt? Are you okay? It hurt a bit when I fell, but I'm fine now. Well, that's good. Hey. Why didn't you watch her properly? What? I took care of her, and this is what I get? Kids are unpredictable, so it can't be helped. It seemed like he wasn't reflecting at all, and with just that, he locked himself back in the basement. Maybe my way of speaking was a bit harsh. Feeling regretful about my tone, I apologized to Robert the next day. As long as you understand. But from now on, I don't want to hear any complaints, so I'm not going to be involved in parenting. I had so much I wanted to say, but considering my pregnancy, I thought it was best not to get irritated and held back my words. A few days after that incident, while cleaning the basement as usual, I noticed skincare products and serums placed as if to be hidden, which were never there before. Of course, there was no way Robert was into beauty care. He had even said, spending money on stuff like this is just a waste, when he saw the cosmetics I used. What is this? Moreover, there were strands of long hair that clearly weren't mine on the sofa bed. The word affair flashed through my mind instantly. If it was true, what should I do? With the birth of our second child impending, I couldn't consider divorce at this moment. Getting carried away by anger isn't good. Besides, I haven't seen anything directly. Even if there was an affair, without solid evidence, and not wanting my children to grow up without a father, I decided to endure it. Several weeks after this event, I was nearing full term and preparing to go back to my parents' home. I'll let you know as soon as the baby is born. It would be nice if you could come. Well, even if you say that, I can't. It's a busy time at work. Despite his cold response, I was somewhat resigned and wasn't too shocked.
I'll help a lot with the baby and mommy.
Mary, who just turned 5, was eagerly awaiting the birth of her sibling, always offering the most encouraging words. And, at this time, her latest craze was making sure the house was locked up tight. Before bed, she made it a ritual to check the locks around our home and then turn off the lights. So it was, in my husband's absence due to work, that I faced the day of returning to my parents' house. Mom, I made sure everything's locked up. Mary beamed proudly. I even locked the basement. Thank you, sweetheart. Shall we head to Grandma and Grandpa's house now? Moving was a struggle with my big belly, but I trusted my daughter and didn't double-check the locks, heading straight to my parents' house. Soon after, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. I tried to contact my husband immediately but couldn't reach him. Well, it can't be helped. He did say he was busy. I hadn't really counted on Robert much to begin with, so I just sent an email about the birth and tried not to worry. Afterward, I became exhausted and fell ill. Juggling the new baby and my health, I found little time to reach out to my husband. By the time I noticed, it was always deep into the night, Robert's sleeping hours. Calling now would just tire him out. I believed that, at this time, my husband was working hard for our family every day. A month after giving birth had passed. I was considering whether to return home or stay a bit longer when I got a call from a neighbor on my cell phone. Thinking something was off, I went outside and was told there's a foul smell coming from your house. Worried, I tried calling my husband but couldn't get through at all. Feeling terrible for causing a nuisance to the neighbors, I left my daughter with my parents and had my father drive me back home that same day. When I arrived, just as mentioned, there was a stench of decay emanating from our house. Looking at the entrance, there was something placed there, emitting a pungent odor. Holding my nose, I reluctantly checked inside and found a gooey mess. Inspecting the delivery note inside, it listed expensive meats, fish, and vegetables. The date was when I had gone back to my hometown, so it must have been sitting there for a month. I couldn't remember ordering it, so it had to have been my husband. I immediately tried calling Robert, but there wasn't even a dial tone, so I went to the basement door and found a cleaning stick propped at an angle in front of it. The door opens outward, so it couldn't be opened from the inside. Surely, this was Mary's doing. We were watching a cartoon with our daughter, where the protagonist used this method to lock doors. Perhaps Mary was impressed by it, as she started playing and doing it on doors all around the house. I remember once she did it in front of the bathroom with my husband inside, and he got really mad. I warned my daughter it was not a game and told her, this is only for when we are leaving the house empty for a long time.
Could it be? Robert couldn't get out and has fallen inside? No, that can't be, he was at work that day.
Saying this to reassure myself, I gently opened the basement door.
Hey, it's been a month. How long is this going to continue? I have no idea.
At the entrance, I could hear my husband and a woman talking. It seems that Robert might have been cheating by bringing a woman into the basement. I grasped the situation, left something at the basement entrance, and quietly closed the door again. Then, entering the house from the front door, I checked the surveillance camera footage. In fact, after finding long hair previously, I had secretly installed a camera at the basement entrance, making sure it wasn't noticeable. The footage frequently showed the other woman coming and going. And the day before we went to my parents' house, Robert and his mistress had gone into the basement and hadn't come out. Moreover, the woman was Jessica, someone I knew well, a neighbor with whom we had a friendly family relationship. I can't believe it. To think she betrayed me with a straight face. The emptiness I felt soon turned into a burning desire for revenge. Not satisfied with just sitting by, I made a phone call and stayed inside the house. An hour later, I heard loud banging on the door separating the basement and the outside. Good, the lure-out strategy worked. As I approached the door, a loud voice came through.
Help! Can anybody hear me? What happened to you? What's wrong?
I took a deep breath and, pretending to know nothing, called out through the door.
Is that you, Susan? Help me! I can't open the door from the basement to the outside. I don't know why, but it's so smelly I can't stand it.
As Robert pleaded, I opened the door, and he rushed out.
I'm saved.
Thinking he could finally breathe, my husband took a deep breath outside.
Wow! What is that stench?
He pointed at a basket of spoiled food, grimacing.
It wasn't here before. Who put this here?
It was me. You asked for it, right? It was rotting at the entrance, causing a nuisance to the neighbors. I explained that I came back home because a neighbor called about the smell. Then, after a moment, my husband had a realization.
Did you make the basement door unopenable?
I didn't answer his question, and as I tried to enter the basement.
Wait, why are you trying to go in there?
Huh? Thought I might clean up a bit. You haven't done anything for a month, have you? Move aside, please.
It's clean, no need for you to do that, Susan. You should rest after the childbirth.
He unexpectedly piled on considerate words, unlike him.
Let's have some tea in the living room. I'll make it. I want to hear about the baby. Was the delivery hard?
Robert, with a forced smile, seemed to forget all about being locked up. He must be very keen on keeping me out of the basement. I'm sure his mistress is there. But peering in, I saw no sign of the other woman. My phone's battery died, and without a charging cable, I was stuck. Sorry for not being able to contact you. Don't worry. I had no idea the door got stuck.
Huh? You didn't do this?
Seizing the opportunity as my husband tilted his head, I walked briskly inside with the basket of spoiled food. All right. Time for phase 2 of the smoking out plan. Then I placed the basket in the washroom in front of the basement toilet and shut the door.
Hey! Why are you doing that?
What? Oh, just putting stinky things where they belong. Ignoring my flustered husband, I moved further inside.
Ugh, it's filthy. Nothing but garbage everywhere. Just eating instant noodles. I had no choice. It's fine, I'll do it. Just go back to the house already.
Robert seemed eager to get me out of there as quickly as possible. Pretending not to care, I started cleaning.
I can't take it anymore.
Soon, a voice sounding almost like vomiting came from the toilet. Who's that?
Huh? Did you hear something? Might be your imagination, you know?
Even as he said that, my husband quickly positioned himself in front of the washroom. Why are you glued to the door?
Maybe I don't hate this smell as much as I thought.
While saying something nonsensical, his eyes were darting around.
Come on. I really can't stand it anymore. Move aside.
With that voice, the door to the toilet and washroom swung open, and my husband fell forward. At the same time, Jessica, the mistress who must have reached her limit of endurance, burst out.
I feel sick.
She had been in the closed room with those rotten foods for minutes, and it seemed the smell had permeated her, as she was teary-eyed and retching repeatedly. Huh? Jessica. What are you doing here?
No, well, she just said she needed to use the bathroom.
Jessica didn't answer, but Robert, flustered, responded instead. Strange, isn't it? Weren't you locked up here for a month? I quickly formed my accusation, and Robert, still flustered, couldn't come up with any excuse. I pursued him further. So, you're cheating with Jessica, aren't you?
What are you talking about? That's impossible. It's rude to say such a thing without evidence, to Jessica too.
He seemed almost comical, trying to defend her. Is that so? If you won't confess, then look at this. Still got any excuses? I showed Robert the surveillance camera footage. Didn't expect you two to be in this basement since the day before I went to my parents', huh? After pointing out the date on the footage of Robert and Jessica entering the basement, I glared at him.
What's this? Why'd you put up a camera without telling me? I didn't know anything about this.
Well, I didn't tell you.
But remember, Jessica was just here to borrow the bathroom, so don't get it twisted.
Did he think he could get away with it? With a dead serious face, he came up with a desperate excuse. However, I coolly fast-forwarded the footage to show him. Quite a long time spent in the toilet, huh?
From this day for a month, no going in or out. And there's no other entrance. Damn. Wait, did you know all about this and just left us locked up here for a month? I told you it wasn't me. Don't you remember?
Then my husband looked at the broom outside the basement door and realized everything.
It was Mary's doing. It's your fault for how you raised her. She never understands, no matter how many times she's told.
Now he was directing his anger toward our daughter.
Huh? When Mary got hurt, you said, kids will be kids, it can't be helped, right?
Unable to retort, Robert just fell silent.
Must have been quite happy, spending such intense time with your affair partner for a month, huh? Yeah, so what? What's it to you? Hey!
Jessica tried to stop him, but he brazenly continued, as if it were all perfectly normal.
I thought we'd celebrate without you in the way, so I splurged on some fancy groceries. Now it's all ruined. Those were the rotten ingredients? It's your fault they went to waste. You should pay me back.
He spat out such petty lines in a fit of defensive rage. According to my husband, they had been scraping by on the stock of instant noodles and snacks, which was also running low.
Couldn't you have called someone from work on your cell phone before the battery died to ask for help? Unreported absence would cause quite a stir at the company, wouldn't it? Well, I just thought, maybe it wasn't that necessary, or maybe it was.
Robert mumbled to himself, his voice trailing off until he fell silent. And that makes sense.
You couldn't call, could you? Because you had applied for paid and parental leave, starting from the day I went back to my parents, hadn't you? How do you know that? And Jessica, you told your husband you were on a long business trip, didn't you? Were you on leave from your job too?
Both of them clamped their mouths shut, looking surprised but unable to respond. Thinking it odd that no one had made a fuss about them being locked up for a month, I had called my husband's company. Then, I was informed that Robert was on parental leave. Of course, I had never heard a word about this parental leave from my husband, so the response from his colleague took me by surprise. While I was relaying this to my husband, suddenly Jessica burst into tears.
Susan, please, I beg you, don't tell my husband about this.
She was pleading for my forgiveness, clinging to me. And then, at that moment,
I already know everything.
David, her husband, appeared in front of us, having listened to the entire episode from outside the entrance.
David! Why are you here?
Without a word, her husband presented her with divorce papers.
I called him. I showed him the footage and told him everything before we entered the basement.
Caught in her affair, Jessica was visibly shaken, trembling as she cried.
I won't hear excuses. Get out of my life forever. I don't want a divorce. It's all his fault, he forced me into this.
Such a late attempt at lying was futile. Yet, Jessica insisted on her innocence, trying desperately to get her husband to forgive her.
Hey! That's not true. This was consensual. You were the one who came to me. Just shut up. I'm talking to David right now. David, she's lying. Don't believe anything Jessica says.
Robert, being painted as the sole villain by Jessica, outright denied her excuses. As their argument escalated, David and I silently watched them. Then, noticing our gaze, Jessica came over and grabbed my arm, pleading through tears.
Susan, please say something. Why should I? This is a matter between you and your husband. If you had just kept quiet to my husband, this might not have happened.
Jessica selfishly shifted the blame to me, leaving me utterly exasperated.
To think you've been involved with Robert all this time and still faced me. I can't comprehend your nerves.
I rebuked her sharply and turned her away. Overwhelmed, Jessica murmured, "It's all over," unable to respond.
Susan, you understand I'm not the only one at fault, right? This woman is cunning. I was duped by her too.
Now, Robert was bad-mouthing Jessica, trying to win my sympathy. What a despicable man. I'm so disappointed. I regretted ever wanting to build a warm home with such a man.
Ever since the baby was born, my allowance has been cut, and you've stopped taking care of me. I'll forgive your past attitude if you apologize.
Robert insinuated it was my fault without waiting for my response.
Do you even realize what you're saying? Oh, of course. Jessica even said it was your fault, Susan. I haven't done anything wrong, have I?
My husband boldly claimed it was my fault for the affair. citing that Jessica had started complaining about me after we coincidentally took the same train home from work. Realizing talking to Robert was a waste of time, I demanded a divorce and also requested child support for our 2 children.
That's a joke. I'm not paying. After all, it was Susan who wanted a second child. I didn't want it, so I shouldn't have to pay any child support.
My husband, once again, insisted he had no responsibility. How could he only think of himself to such an extent? Fuming with anger, I launched my final counterattack to silence this man.
I've already informed the company that you brought your mistress here and engaged in an affair while on parental leave. What? Seriously? The manager was furious. You might want to charge your phone soon. He said he wanted to call you in.
Robert's face turned pale as he was confronted with this unexpected reality.
Tell the company it was all a misunderstanding by Susan. Then there won't be any problem.
That's impossible, you know.
I can't lie. Please! I don't want a divorce. Let's work on parenting together, okay?
He desperately pleaded, changing his tune entirely. But my feelings were unchangeable. Witnessing such a pitiful Robert only extinguished any love I had left for him.
A rotten father like you is unnecessary for my children, and as a husband too.
After cutting him off decisively, Robert crumbled to his knees, overwhelmed. Leaving Robert and Jessica in a state of shock, I informed my dad, who had been silently watching over us, that everything was over, and I returned to my parents' house. Later, the divorce was finalized. I successfully claimed child support for both my children. My ex-husband had to use the money from selling our house to pay these amounts, but it wasn't enough, so he started working day jobs to make the payments. Moreover, because he engaged in an affair instead of parenting during his parental leave, he was terminated from his job. Well, it's a company that deals with children's products, so image matters, and I believe his dismissal was justified. I have started living with my children at my parents' home. My parents told me focus on childcare for a while, so I decided to rely on them until the younger child turns 1. My 5-year-old daughter is a big help, always ready to soothe her sibling when they get fussy. From now on, I will put my children first and strive for a happy life with my family.